Hey, it's Move the Ball Monday. Um, I'm so glad to see you here. I have decided that I'm going to do these leadership series that are 15 minutes or less, specifically talking about tips and tricks for leading without burnout. And if you haven't been here before, I am Nicole Price and I own a leadership development company called Lively Paradox, where we focus on empathetic leadership. I think it's important to know that I am probably the worst person to talk about empathy. I tell this story about when I was working inside corporate that my name, Nicole, and the Arnold Schwarzenegger's Terminator character were combined to call me the Nickinator. And so I am always going to be here without judgment just to help you be able to get some information to help you be better at leadership. Do share and like this video. And when you share it with people who struggle with burnout in their leadership areas or also are looking for new ways to show up as a better leader. Today, I want to talk specifically about delegation. And one of my favorite quotes around delegation came from Stephen R. Covey. And it says that trust is powerful, it's also fast, it also can be lost quickly. Trust is also reciprocal. If you give trust, it will be given back to you. Delegation is a result of this trust. And if Stephen Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the book that has sold millions of copies for decades, if what Covey is saying is true, why don't leaders delegate more? And I can tell you that what I tend to hear most often is that why do I delegate if I can do it faster? Why do I delegate if when I delegate, the person messes it up? Or if when I delegate, it is taking me longer to train somebody? If when I delegate, I end up losing a control and access and ability to influence the outcomes? Well, yes, you might be able to do it faster. In the short term, you can do it faster. But in the long term, when I think about leaders who are suffering from burnout, this idea that I can delegate, if I'm choosing between delegation and doing something on my own, that it can be done faster, is actually working against us in the long run. And so, what I want to leave with you today is that the one-on-one is going to be critically important when you delegate. Now, for a person who is already strapped for time, adding something to your calendar might feel like the worst thing in the world I'm asking you to do. But the purpose of the one on one, and this is information that I got from my colleagues at Inside Out Development when I have worked with them as a master coach, is to check progress. And I don't mean to be like a project management tracker, but to see what's working, what's not working, and what, if anything, needs to be done differently in the way the work you've delegated has been going. The second purpose of the one on one, and again, I want to share that if you are suffering from burnout, adding one more thing to your calendar might absolutely feel like it is the wrong thing to do or that it's just going to take more time. But what happens when you don't check progress? How much lost time does it take when you don't provide feedback? And when I mean feedback, I don't mean just negative. You see, if you only talk to people when something goes wrong, then you end up by default having a one on one where all you're doing is providing negative feedback. If you have standard one on ones, you will get into the spirit of embracing a culture of celebration, talking about things that are working, as well as talking about things that are not working. Oftentimes, our people, when they report to us, are afraid to talk to when we say, "Hey, do you have a minute?" and we're saying it to them. Inevitably, if we don't have standard one on ones, people tend to think, what do they want? And you don't want that kind of a culture established with the people who report to you. And then the third and final purpose of the one-on-one is to identify areas where you might need to up your level of support. One of my former leaders used to say, you have to delegate, yes, but delegation does not mean I give you this task and then I never talk to you about it again. The purpose of the one-on-one is to identify areas where support is still needed. So delegate, but do not drop support. So here's some things that I want to leave with you today. And I want you to write this down so that you have it for later. 1, 2, 3, culture of celebration. How do I elevate the things that are working, the things that I've heard good about a person's performance throughout the last week? And how do I make sure that I ask the person who reports to me what's one thing that they want to celebrate? because there are many things in most industries that are sitting around for us to complain about. And so if we are not deliberate about creating a culture of celebration, then we will find that we don't do it often. The second thing I want you to write down is coaching. I have a coaching model. My favorite leadership coach, Alan Fine, has a coaching model. One of my favorite um, leadership experts, Susan Scott, has a coaching model. There are many coaching models, and they all work if you use them. The challenge is people don't know what coaching is as leaders, and coaching is not just telling people what to do, it is asking good questions so that you can figure out what is the person who's reporting to you, what do they think the next right action is that they can take. Because when I think about people who have an average tenure of like 20, 25 years, when people come to the leader to ask for permission, oftentimes they know what the right action is to take and they just aren't taking it because they don't want the responsibility associated with taking that responsibility. And so in addition to celebration, the one on one, I want you to write down that your job is to coach and do not mix coaching with advice giving. And if by chance you need to get some clarity on what's the difference between those, please always feel free to reach out at drnicoleprice.com. I am happy to answer any question you might have. And then, third and finally, this idea of what can I do to support or where is support needed? This general question of how can I help? And those one-on-ones are really helpful. And sometimes people are going to say nothing, and that's fine. And if you are a leader who is suffering from burnout, it is highly likely that you do not take time to do these things on a weekly basis, and it is costing you dearly much later. You are finding out after the fact that your people who have been doing a great job but feel like they're not getting rewarded have left. Your people who are doing a great job but are not being stretched in terms of where they need to use more of their skill, talent, and ability. And then you as a leader aren't getting an opportunity to put your efforts where it would be most valuable, where people want you to help versus where they don't. And so I want to wrap up here, leaving you with an assignment. And I want you to like and share this video if you know a leader who is overwhelmed and burnt out and is not really using their one-on-one effectively. If you have 10 people or less, once weekly, you should schedule formal time with everyone on your team, at least 20 minutes. Now, if you have more than 20 people 10 people who directly report to you, structurally, I'm not sure how that works, but if you have 20 people or less, I want you to have a one-on-one with everyone on your team of at least 20 minutes every 2 weeks. And the idea is that this time should be formal. The whole drive by where you're like, hey, how are things going, is not what a one on one is designed to be, because people will say, I'm fine. People will say they don't need to talk to you. Or once again, you'll be one of those people who is just talking to people when things are going wrong. Use the time to check in, not as a project management tool. If you want to check on the status of projects, then you should have status updates for that. This is a time for you to learn more about people, figure out what's going on with them, and figuring out where you can provide more support and help. If by chance you happen to be in Kansas City or do not mind traveling, I'm currently running a special on my leadership summit, which is Friday, August 7th. Doors are opening at 8 for breakfast. 8:30 is where we're getting into the heart of it, but hard start at 9 a.m., 9 to noon. That's a suburb of Kansas City, if you are not aware. And I would love to have you there where we talk more about these kinds of things to help leaders who struggle with burnout or help leaders who really need to advance performance on their team without negatively impacting culture. So today's time was like 9 minutes. I'm going to do these periodically on Mondays so that you can get more just practical tips about how you can lead with more empathy and less burnout. If there's anything I can do to help you, I can always be reached at drnicoleprice.com. You can schedule your own meetings there. Always happy to support you. Thank you so much for joining this Move the Ball Monday. We've got work to do. Bye.